Good afternoon and welcome to this panel discussion. Today we're going to discuss a very important topic, Malta's film culture and ecosystem. We have four guests, but before I would like to say that Malta is well known in the world of film and has been firmly put on the map in the world of film, mostly because of its servicing industry to runaway productions. When Malta's reputation and track record in delivering a world-class service to foreign productions, how are we evolving as a local industry to tell our own stories and create films, TV programming such as series or documentaries, which can be distributed within the international market? As I already said, we have a very talented panel. Most of them, their surname is 𝗙𝗟𝗧𝗔. My name is Mario 𝗙𝗟𝗧𝗔, and I produce but not the only one, 𝗙𝗟𝗧𝗔. And I am the producer and presenter of a television program called 𝗪𝗘𝗘𝗞. Today I am the moderator, and thank you all for being here. And we have a very nice, energetic audience in front of us. Our first speaker is Winston 𝗙𝗪𝗧𝗔, and I said it's not the only second 𝗙𝗪𝗧𝗔. There is a third 𝗙𝗪𝗧𝗔, who is Colin 𝗙𝗪𝗧𝗔, and I welcome as well Abigail Malia and Paul Parker. Our first speaker is Winston 𝗙𝗪𝗧𝗔, producer and service provider to 𝗙𝗘𝗘𝗞 Pictures Limited. Winston needs no introduction in this sector. His name and reputation are synonymous with Malta film industry. He has been actively involved in film productions since the shooting of Midnight Express, and that dates back to the mid-70s or late 70s. Winston set up the Malta Film Commission and became Malta's first film commissioner, a post he relinquished to set up 𝗙𝗘𝗘𝗞 Pictures. He has recently stepped into the world of independent filmmaker with his first feature film, The Boat. Drawing from his experience, he will enlighten us on the challenges he faced as he produced his own film and how that compared to working in the service industry. Winston, making the shift from a service provider, as I said, Midnight Express, Gladiator, and a lot of others, to an independent filmmaker with a feature film for the international market, requires a different mindset, I would say. One which you have most admirably done in your first feature film, The Boat. It was reviewed, and I quote, easily one of the year's best adventure films and best films, which is a praise indeed. My first question is, drawing from this experience as an independent filmmaker, what were some of the challenges you had to face?
Okay, well, the experience helps obviously from producing, low-budget films to big epic movies like Troy and the rest, Assassin's Creed and 13 Hours. But you have to have it in stages. So obviously you have the development stage, which is the idea basically of what am I going to do. So yes, you come up with a script. Obviously, the script has to be good, otherwise it's pointless doing anything. Doing something that's not too ambitious, because this is probably one of the biggest problems I see with Maltese filmmakers. They try and do something which is too ambitious. And yes, you can make a big with action and period films and costumes, but obviously, unless you have the money and the talent to do it, it won't look right. So try and find a simple story, which is what we did. Write about something which is obviously sailing was in my blood, so I knew exactly how how a boat reacts and all the terminology and being comfortable shooting out at sea, which we've done many times. So that kind of was the first phase. The second phase was obviously raising the finance, which is also probably the most difficult one, but maybe in my case because maybe through my contacts and being in this industry for a very long time, that kind of came up very quickly. Then there was kind of the third stage, which is the filming, which is the easiest part. Well, at least for me it is, because, you're on a set, we have the experience, I had Colin there, line producing, there was Rita, Yolanda, so, Ryan, I'm trying to see who Felicity was there as well. So, that was kind of the easiest part. I would say then the fun part was the post-production. Because obviously, you're there, you're in the studio, we cut it in London, it's relaxed, and you can go home in the evening at a good time. And then obviously, after all that's been done, then you have the distribution. And this is where my stomach usually, if I had a bucket, I'd probably throw up, because that is the hardest part of the film for a local, independent, without stars attached. That is the hardest part. So you can do everything, you can go all the way. And yes, I found a distributor while we were cutting the film. But that's the hardest part. To give the deliverables to the distributor. I'm seeing Rebecca nodding her head here. She knows what I mean. You need a studio to do that. You need a big company, not one individual, or because at the end of the day we're all freelancers, and just one after the other. This and on this paper. Now when it came to America, to sell it to an American distributor. Oh my God, the insurance. And I can't even, honest to God, I felt like if I could, I would throw the film in a bin and completely forget about it, because it was horrendous. And I swear that's why I haven't done anything again, because I won't do something again until I find that part who's, is either in place or somebody's going to take care of it. Because I tell you what, but going back to, was going to be your next question is, what should we do?
But before, I would like to ask you a question, because you forgot to mention who was your main actor in that film, I believe.
What?
You forgot to mention who was the main actor in that film.
Oh, you mean the one who's been nominated for Best Actor on the Malta Film Awards? Oh, yeah, Joe.
How is it that you have to direct your own son?
It was terrible, I think. He knows. Colin used to be the referee. Is Colin? I'm going to fucking kill him. Sorry, guys, I'm swearing. Talk to him, because he used to see the footage, Ryan, probably laughing. Yeah, it was terrible. Probably never again. That's, I forgot, After distribution, it was dealing with the cost.
Do you think that the Maltese filmmakers are ready to step into the international world and create works for international audiences, or should we stick to producing for local audiences, which are limited, I would say?
I did one massive mistake in the film. I did it in English. Although there wasn't much dialogue, I think there was 55 words, but it was in English. If I had to do something else, I would do it in Maltese. Primarily, it could be a film.
But that doesn't create problems if you want to go internationally?
No. Okay, probably would have been easier. It would have been easier to distribute than if it wasn't an English film. Mm-hmm. And I get it I'm saying to Rebecca, because I talked to her just earlier on. I mean, I loved Lutsu. I think if Lutsu was in English, it would have spoiled the film. Yeah. I probably would have done today, if I had to do it again, I'd do it in Maltese. I would not do it in... even in film markets, it's competing as a foreign film. It also has a niche. And today, I think foreign films, or foreign language films, I think it just today there's a nicer tone. People are getting used to seeing subtitles today. So I would definitely do it in Maltese.
Is there a balance to be maintained to appeal for a local and international audience? How would you go about it? And what would you say to someone starting out in the industry today?
Yeah, well, I think doing a film is like creating a product. Who's your market? Who's going to watch this film? And that's not just, the locals will watch it or the Americans. No. It's what age will people, is it universal with the 16-year-olds like this, and with the 8-year-olds like this, or in between? So you have to find a market. I mean, nothing gets made with Netflix or Amazon and any of these big ones unless they know who the market is. It's just like creating, I don't know, a pair of shoes. Who do you create them for? Unless you have that in place. It's very hard to make a film. This is why you have to make it appealing. Not, I would say, to a wide, because like horror is mostly for younger people. But you have to know who your market is. And if you think, I'll make a film, I'm sure it's going to be good and people will come and watch it, it's not the way it works. If you speak to a distributor or to a studio, or to a streaming platform, they say, but who do you think will watch this film? Or who do you think, is going to go buy a ticket at the cinema? So there is, yes, come up with a script, but there's more than the actual filmmaking and there's everything. There is that kind of end part, which is the most important part.
But should you test the story before you start filming it so that you will be more sure that you're going to have an international or a local audience?
Well, of course, most people have to get financing. So to get financing, you have to show your script. You have to make a pitch. And usually the financiers will tell you, probably they'll answer your question, or a distributor or somebody who wants to participate. But, it's a combination of things. I mean, I'm saying that the filming part is the easiest part. Maybe for me it was, but, is it going to be a good product? I mean, he knows, you're out at sea or you're in the tank and you're shooting this, and I go, oh God, is this going to gel together? And then you have Daniel Lapira shouting at you because obviously he wanted a bigger, of a longer scene, and then I go to find Ryan, and so it's, you have to know what you're doing. Without a doubt, you have to know what you're doing. Because unless, your vision has to be there. And then just create, a vision is a script, it's the acting, it's the costumes, it's everything, set design. It's all, lighting, getting a good director of photography, which is key, and obviously having a good post-production team, because, you can shoot a lot, but, it's the editing that's going to put it together, and he will cover the mistakes you do. I mean, even if these top directors in the world, they all make mistakes, and so is the editor who puts it together. So it has to be a combination of everything.
So thank you for your insights, Winston. We'll have time for some questions later on. We now move on to our second panel speaker, another name that needs no introduction and who has worked in the international markets. It's another 𝗙𝗟𝗏𝗞, Ковin 𝗙𝗟𝗏𝗞. Having taken the decision to make a career in the film industry, Kovin moved to the UK to study and then worked himself up the ladder. From offering his services for free or at really low rates to getting the experience and connections, Kovin has come a long way to reach the heady echelons of the industry. He is recognized for his international efforts, including working on HBO's GOT for 7 seasons. That's fantastic. 3 of which as key production manager in Spain, for which he was also recognized twice by the Emmy Awards. Very good. Line producing for Netflix and Bollywood overseas, and co-producing productions for Hallmark, amongst many other international and local productions, including producing and directing the most viewed local music video on YouTube with over 25 million hits. That's a lot. He is internationally in demand for his services and is gradually moving into independent filmmaker, as a filmmaker with his own content and as an international co-producer and also as a producer. Kovin will talk about his personal experiences and share his opinions on what it takes to make a successful career in this field. And I think the first question is exactly on the point. Kovin, let us look at a key point which frequently comes up in a discussion and debates. Do we have the stories to tell that can and will appeal to an international audience?
I think that's a very straightforward answer, in the sense the answer is yes. We, as Winston has proved, that we have the stories and eventually the know-how to get our stories out there and put them out there. So that's the basic answer to that. Yes, we do. The stories can vary, and I agree with Winston as well, with even going even more local-based stories. They don't have to be necessarily international, action movies and all that kind of stuff. Local language films. 𝗪𝗪𝗪 is a very good example. Once again, well done, Becky, and Oliver and everyone involved in that film. So we do have the stories, and both Boats and 𝗪𝗪𝗪 and 𝗪𝗪𝗪, they're all testimony to that.
3 films which are associated with sea.
True. But it doesn't have to be sea-based. I mean, there are other stories that obviously that appeal. And, Limestone Cowboy as well. That was extremely...
Yes.
Yes, it was on land, exactly.
I'm sure Abigail will mention it, definitely. So our industry is still, let's admit, is still in its infancy.
Correct.
And although people like you have made great strides internationally, do we have the right talent and backing to create and deliver works at a level and quality that can appeal to an international audience?
The right talent and backing. This opens up a whole discussion, basically. Again, we do have the right talent. There is obviously our talent is limited in the sense, not that we don't have the talent that can make the films, as we have seen, but it's limited because our market base in Malta as an island is small. And this brings us then to the next part, which is the backing. There needs to be more effort put into the backing on all levels, both privately and from publicly, from the government side. I think one of the things we need to take into consideration, and this is where the talent comes in, I think local TV producers, film producers, I think are extremely talented in the sense that they have learned over the years to create content with very limited budgets. You know, if you look at our TV market, which is very small, of course, and the series that are produced, the quality of the series is improving year after year after year with extremely limited budgets. You know, I mean, today, if I had to try and go and produce probably one of these local TV series with what I'm used to working on today, it would be very difficult for me to produce something like that because I'd be saying, where's the money? How can we afford this? How can we afford that? So the talent of our local producers is you know, it's fantastic in how they find ways, Emmys in producing this stuff. Mm-hmm. So they deserve, you know, to be acknowledged for that. Talent in terms of artists we have as well. You know, our actors have improved as well over the years. You find a lot more people going to study abroad. There are a lot more people taking interest and looking at this industry as a career rather than just as a hobby, including the theater as well. So there definitely is the talent pool. Yes, we're a small island, so we're limited. We can obviously, there's ways to improve, and we need more consistency to create the talent. It's like a muscle, you know. I used to be an actor myself, for example. But when you stop doing it, if I had to go back and do a part now, I'd be nervous, I'd be unsure, my performance wouldn't be as good, because you have to train it. And the same as a filmmaker. The more films you make, the better you're going to get at it. Mm-hmm. Just like Winston was saying as well, with his experience from all the servicing, that gave him a platform to create a basis to create his own film, and that comes from one after the other, after the other, after the other. Which brings us again back to the backing. Now, we're limited in resources. As Winston said, finding finances to create a product, because it is a product. A film, we love the art, but ultimately it is a product as well. You know, you have to make the checks and balances. You have to pay people. So it is a product. And unfortunately, again, goes back to the size of the island, the culture of, like the minister and Johan mentioned this morning, the culture of investing in film locally is not there yet. So there has to be backing from government as much as possible, and private entities, but that comes as well with incentives, to help push this industry. Because that is the only way we're going to create the consistency and allow local filmmakers to produce one film after the other and create an indigenous industry.
The film industry brings together art and enterprise with multiple audiences. Creating content for local audiences can be limiting, especially if we need to reach wider international markets. Is there a good understanding of how the industry works from the business side, since producing content involves more than just the creative, bringing in, I think Winston already mentioned it, legal, IP, financing, distribution, marketing, and much more, insurances, and much more. How important is it for local producer to understand its dynamics, see opportunities, and understand it is not just about the creative? Can we drive our emerging talent to develop itself in international markets, learn the trade, and make international connections? Quite a
long... yes. Basically, we touched on it a little bit earlier, and so did Winston. To repeat, a film or a TV series, at the end of the day, is a product. To use Winston's example, like a shoe, you have to find your market, who you're going to sell it to. And that comes also from experience, from training. Even I'm still learning that side of things as well, you know. It's still a bit hit and miss, how you find your way through this road. Recently, I was talking to some producers in the UK and the US, and even they struggle very often to find financing, even though they're established, you know, financing for their productions. And every time, every production is different because either you have different talents, different genre, different. It's all really, really, really diverse. And accordingly, it is extremely important that filmmakers or TV producers or even actors or anyone really involved in the industry understand that this industry is, the art is good. Of course, you can create content that is art and that is indie films, and if that's your target, that you want to create a film that is creating an artistic vision or making a point, you know, that's great. But ultimately, to have consistency, you need to be able to afford it and to be able to go to the next one and the next one. And there, as a nation, I guess maybe because, as we were saying before, our film culture is in its infancy, we don't have the structures, the schooling to learn that side of the business. I mean, Winston, as he explained before, he was learning as he went along as well. You know, to get the distribution is a headache. You know, it's a big headache. And it's really difficult, especially for people like us who are sort of venturing out into that area as independent filmmakers, and we haven't created that global network of people and understand how and where to go, which people to talk to, which events or conferences to go internationally to try and get your product sold. There's an investment to be done, not only financial investment, I'm talking educational investment, and even in yourself. Sometimes I started doing it a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, or whatever. I just started going to festivals like Cannes and things, just without even knowing what I'm doing. You know, I just went and started walking around, literally walking up to the desks and say, can I speak to someone and understand a little bit? Most of the time they tell you to F off, you know, they don't have the time to waste. And then other times you start finding people who are a bit kinder and willing to share their experiences. And then by building your network and your connections, like, again, I'm trying to do myself at this point in time. I'm calling up producers I've worked with. Just finished a Netflix movie last summer in Rome, and I called the producers this year, and I said, is it okay if once in a while I call you to pick your brain and explain to me, please, how I maneuver in these waters? And they were nice, and they were cool with it, and they said, yes, absolutely. So there are all these elements, the IP, you know, protecting your IP as well, because you have to go out there and pitch it to lots of people. You have to be prepared to lose ideas sometimes, you know, because it's not always a fair market either, you know. So there are many, many elements that one needs to keep in mind. Locally, we're still developing in that section. Hopefully from this Malta Film Week as well, there'll be more discussion in this regard where people can come together and help each other. And one key factor that I always like to emphasize is collaboration. You know, we're a small island. We should try and help each other more. You know, the local TV industry, which is, like I said, they're doing great for the resources that they have, and the servicing industry. If they find a way to bring them together, one can support the other. You know, and that will bring up the level both of the quality of the TV series, because you're hiring people who have serviced films and worked on films like Gladiator, Troy, you know, Assassin's Creed, Captain Phillips, all this kind of stuff, which then they bring their experience to the TV, you know. And that's, so collaboration is extremely important, even locally. You're trying to make a film, okay, it's true, everybody wants to get their idea made. Let's find a way to come together. Maybe this year we do my idea, next year we do your idea, or vice versa, whatever, and we help each other. And because that's the only way forward, because we're all fighting for the same little pot, you know? And we need to try and find some kind of balance and help each other, understanding these murky waters, to use the water analogy again. in terms of legal, distribution, financing, etc., etc., etc.
Out of curiosity, you worked on films and series, 7 seasons.
Well, 7 seasons of Game of Thrones, yes.
Yeah. So, which do you prefer? Working on a film which has sort of a beginning and an end over a small period of time, or?
There.
I hate TV.
I think it depends. I think it depends. There are certain things that it's nice. Like Game of Thrones, for example, for me was a fantastic journey. One, being part of such a big project that sort of, which at season 1 they knew it was going to do well, but they never expected it to do so well, you know. And became a bit like a cult, and it just exploded. And you're being part of the process. And I started off as an AD, so I was part of the creative process as well. And you're getting involved in decision making, creating the looks of the various cultures in the story and stuff like that. And then moving on to production management and helping actually make the product on a massive scale. Of course, you know, the budgets on that were off the roof. That there's a satisfaction in that and being part of that and being recognized for the awards and all that kind of thing. On the other hand, sometimes, like Winston's saying, a film is good, it's because you get the project, you finish it, you move on, next one, you know? And because, for example, while I was doing Game of Thrones, I used to get calls for other projects, and obviously you can't do it because you're tied down for so many years on a project. So everything has its pros and cons, of course. I guess if it was my TV series, then it's a bit different because it's yours and you're, you know, involved in it and you're absorbed in the process. But I like them. I would say I like them equally because the satisfaction you get is different, and ultimately it boils down to the people you're working with. Don't get me wrong. It could be a film, it could be a series, and even if it's a blockbuster. And they're extremely famous people on the film, if they're not nice people, you don't enjoy working on it. And I can't wait until that finishes, as Winston knows as well. So everyone knows anyway. So
thank you, Colin. I'm going to pass on to Abigail, but Winston, you have to tell us why later on. Oh, yeah. So thank you, Colin. And now I am going to welcome our third talented speaker, Abigail Malia. Abigail is, as you all know, is a successful award-winning local television, film, theater, and director who has produced well-known works, including 𝗙𝗘𝗞, Miracle, Limestone Cowboy. She recently had the opportunity to attend, I hope I say it correctly, series. She also attended Series Mania, and she told me that she also attended Series Women.
Yeah.
So providing her with the opportunity to mingle and network with like-minded independent content makers. Abigail is also involved in the board of the Malta Entertainment Industry and Arts Association, MEA, representing the audiovisual industry in Malta. We invited her to join us today to share her insights from her international career and her work in technology and content. And my first question is, please share learnings from your interactions with your international peers. You attended those three, which I believe is in France, no? There.
All over, really.
All over.
So for the last 6 years, I've been working hard. The company has been working hard on internationalizing our projects and internationalizing Maltese projects and taking them all over the world. In fact, you mentioned Series Women. Series Women is a networking course, workshop, seminar that lasted a year. Europe recognizes how important it is that we network. And that was a fantastic opportunity for me because basically it was about getting about 25 female producers together from all over Europe. And we spent a year together creating the network and working on the network. So now I'm in a position where, you know, I'm negotiating a contract with a top production house. I just message my Danish friend producer and I can, what do you think of the contract? How should I proceed? I think that is key. We have to grow our network. However, I think the most important lesson I've learned when I see we have to look at Malta as a tiny market. We're a small country, so we really need to focus on the European model. And the European model is co-production. I was very happy this morning when the strategy was laid out that internationalization was given a lot of weight. I'm very eager to sit down, roll my sleeves and start working on that, because I think that is the only way forward for a small country like Malta. And with co-production, you get a lot of benefits. First of all, you're working with countries, production houses that have a track record. So you're learning, you're seeing how everything works, you're accessing a larger market. And most importantly, I'm a firm believer of the co-production fund because it is a hook to attract foreign investment into Malta. So it's not just funding the artist, but you're giving the artist and the producer a tool to actually attract foreign investment. When you come to pitch your projects, we've had a lot of interest in our projects. The question is always, what is Malta bringing to your project financially? It would be, I would hate to have my Maltese project turn into a Greek project or a Danish project. You know, I want to make Maltese projects. So I think it is very important that we look at having the right structures put in place so that we can co-produce with other countries. Other countries as small as ours have done it. We shouldn't reinvent the wheel. Let's look at what these countries have done. Countries like Iceland, Luxembourg. I mean, Iceland is fantastic. I come from the series world. Their series, I mean, they have a smaller population. They've done it. Let's look at what they've done to be such a success story, and let's follow those footsteps. And I think it really needs to start with co-production. I think if like from Serious Women, that's the thing I've learned. Also from Serious Mania and from 𝗙𝗟𝗧𝗔, what I really learned. So we were up there showcasing Miraclu, which is a Holy Mary. I see one of the actors here, 𝗙𝗜𝗟𝗧𝗔. And what I saw there when we were showcasing, first of all, they could not believe what we achieved with our limited resources. Secondly, they were so intrigued by the Maltese stories. So you asked Colin, do we have stories? They were so intrigued. By the end of the festival, people were just imitating our characters, asking us about Malta, really into the story. So I think we are in a very strong position, and it's a very exciting time for local filmmaking. If we make the right decisions and the right step forward, and if we work together all across the board, servicing, TV. In fact, we're working on a campaign right now, 𝗙𝗟𝗧𝗔. If you haven't heard of it, do go into our Facebook page. And it is all about that. It's about industry professionals all across the field coming together to share struggles, to share information, and to figure out the best way forward for the local industry, because now is the right time.
You are using different formats for storytelling.
Yeah.
How have recent advances and the increased interest in audiovisual and online content impacted storytelling?
Yeah.
What should we be looking at as an industry to ensure we have the talent and skills to thrive in this environment?
Yeah. So right now, I come from TV, right? And it's the golden age for TV, truly. I mean, when I went to Serious Mania, people are just thirsty for content. We got meetings and we pitched to top producers. I mean, AMC, Lionsgate, and they're all there and they're listening to your pitch. And their story is very important, right? So this is something I want to emphasize. We need to really make sure we give the right weight to scripts, right? Unfortunately, it's a catch-22 situation when it comes to the project I'm working on right now, which is the Jenny Wilder tapes. It took 2 years to work on plot and deliver the first episode, the pilot, right? And when I say we, it was like a group of 6 people in the writer's room for 2 years. Now, it makes no sense to have that kind of investment if you are only going to focus on the local market. So we need to internationalize. That is the only way. If you're going to spend 2 years in the writer's room, then the project can't just be addressed towards a small market. Financially, it's not going to make sense. We're at a crucial time. We're either going to make the right decisions and jump onto the boat. Excuse Winston's boat. or else we might miss it completely, and that would be, at least for local TV, I hate being, doomsday, but I think it will be tragic for local TV, because when you ask people, I mean, I was talking to 𝗙𝗜𝗟𝗏𝗍𝗍 earlier, he says, 10 years ago I used to go to schools and people knew who I was. Now they hardly recognize me because people have shifted. They're starting to watch Netflix, they're starting to watch Amazon, How many people are still watching local TV? We have to be careful. Unless we make the shift to internationalization, it worries me that Maltese product will not have a space within the market. So I think now is the time to act,
You have 𝗙𝗜𝗟𝗏𝗍𝗍 on
Yes.
Go. Does it help? The fact that it's being rerun again?
It's nice. Financially, I mean, unless 𝗙𝗟𝗏𝗍𝗍 is being seen at a European level, I mean, financially, it's not going to help. I mean, it's nice that people get to see it, and it's something that we sweat blood, and it's fine that it's there, but really and truly, we need structures put in place to be able to get something like 𝗙𝗟𝗏𝗍𝗍, which was a great success story locally, and create something that can be internationalized through the concept of 𝗙𝗟𝗏𝗍𝗍. That is also something we're working on. Like, you can sell your format. You don't need to sell your product. If your product wasn't the production value wasn't right enough, you can sell the story. But as Colin said, we have no track record as a company. So unfortunately, we have to be the ones to build that track record, hopefully for the generations to come.
We are discussing film culture and ecosystem.
Yeah.
I want to take this opportunity to ask this question. Do you feel, as a woman, that you are at a disadvantage because
Not
you are
at all. No, I think
because the film industry, all of it, is saying that women are at a disadvantage.
No, I never felt that. First, and also, if you look at the indigenous industry, you have a lot of female, I mean, in leading roles like Rebecca Anastasi here, Rebecca Cremon, and I think being a female, I might sound a bit controversial. Shirley, I just saw Shirley there. Being a female in such a problematic environment, as in with lack of resources, etc., I think the nurturing of the female helps. I think it helps. To keep the team together even when you're struggling, and you keep the tempers a bit low. I've calmed down in my 40s. But no, I think I'm quite happy being a female in this world.
Our final question is, what advice would you give to newcomers and those aspiring to work in the industry on an international level?
I think my first piece of advice would be get as much experience as you can, get an education. But that is the obvious answer, but get as much experience as you can. And I would like to speak about this experience factor. First of all, I was lucky because by age 30, I produced 150 hours of TV. I wouldn't have been born in the UK. So that is the advantage of being in such a small island. But I think there are things we are not looking at. For example, I think we need to explore using incentives like the cash rebate to get our crew into higher positions. So, for example, if you get this incentive, you're giving the crew HOD status, or the actor a speaking role, a secondary role, I think it is important to start giving our crew these kind of experiences, which are given on TV. Okay, so on TV, we are thrown into the trenches. And so I would say, get experience. That is very important. Get experience on a local set, get experience on an international set, which is something I didn't do and I regret. not having done it. But
I'll hire you.
sorry.
I'll hire you if you want.
Okay. Done.
Done.
Can I?
Will we all be wrapping up?
Yes,
Can
yes,
I just interrupt about
yes,
something?
yes, of course.
We're talking about, Abigail saying get crew into international productions. On every film we do, we have 5 trainees, which is one of the requirements for the Gashribi. We never find. Or if we find them, they never finish the whole film. So there is a lack of commitment about new people, in my opinion, coming into film, because we never find them. Or they might come for a week, realize that filmmaking is really hard and not as nice as you think it is. And that's it. The next day, they don't turn up. She works in my office. She knows what it's like.
I've had that experience. However, there are skilled workers, skilled artists that can have, with the right structures, more experience in the international, on international sets. I feel, even when it comes to like acting, for example. Like we have amazing actors, and.
I'd like to say something about this later,
Yes,
but not now, because I don't want to...
No, go ahead.
Basically, I think a lot of people see one side of our industry. They see the television, or they watch the film, and then they see the red carpet stuff on television, and they think, oh, look how glamorous and what fun, and it's all, and everyone falls in love with the industry in that respect, because they think it's all actors, parties, and whatever. But in reality, excuse my language, it's fucking hard work, and like Abigail was giving an example, it can take years to develop, a concept, a project, and the key thing for these people who want to come in and experience and join the industry is dedication, absolute dedication. And as you mentioned in my introduction, I did stuff for free when I was younger, for cheap. And I still do sometimes if there's a particular project that I like, or I want to get the credit, or I want to take the next step. I still do a lot of stuff for peanuts and for free. It's not necessarily ideal because, of course, we all want to get paid and we all need to pay our bills. But it's the dedication that you have, Now, it's a hard-working industry. Long hours, the filming days are long, arduous. Lots of people to deal with.
But I think, from my experience, this industry either sucks you in or spits you out.
Exactly, it's dedication.
So I think it's very fast to figure out who's going to last and who's like if they leave after a week, you know what I mean? But it's very, very hard work. And unfortunately, it's true. The younger generation are
everyone wants to be an influencer on Instagram.
So thank you, Abigail. And I'm sure that we will continue to discuss these points that you raised together with Winston and Colin well into the future. We now welcome the fourth speaker, Paul Parker, who until now has been very, very quiet, and I'm not going to let him quiet. Paul has been actively involved in television and film for at least 40 years, so we know practically your age. Having joined when only 15 years of age, when he started as a part-time PA with a local AV studio representing 𝗙𝗟𝗧𝗔 at that time. He has shot in Libya for a number of years, producing documentaries for Shell and Esso. He studied in the UK with BBC and FTS and as an avid editor at Pinewood Studios, London. Parker Film and TV Productions has been up and running over the last 20 years. They represent and shoot for international clients, AFP, Agence French Presse, WDR Germany, BBC Sky Arts, Discovery Channel, Canada, Swiss TV, and RAI. Recently, he has set up the Paul Parker Films Limited to service the independent filmmaker sector. He has also moved into co-productions with international partners. And in fact, he has done the Grand Duke of Corsica with Camelot Films, starring Peter Stormare and Timothy Spall. He also had the documentary, Good Soldiers, and hopefully we'll have later on also the trailers of these two productions, which brings us straight into the topic of co-production. Please share your learnings from working with an international co-producing partners. What does it mean to co-produce? as a co-producing partner. What did you bring to the table?
Well, co-producing is a bit of a headache. One, just to play on to what Winston was saying, distribution is key, and financing. So basically, what do I get to the table? Coming from a small country, our resources are limited. So your finance piece of that financing for the whole project is going to be limited. So I was lucky enough to meet my partner in the UK, who had already produced other stuff for TV. So financing was, although it was still hard, but at least we started pitching much months before. I mean, it took us to produce 𝗪𝗟𝗟𝗧 took us at least a year and a half between pitching the story, getting the funding. As I said, we were lucky because ORF and ZDF and Viasat gave us funding before we started actually shooting. So that was key to our project getting off the ground. But it was only part of what we could get for the project. So getting the crew together, getting the project here and working on it was very difficult.
I believe you were a minority co-producer.
I was a minority co-producer.
But how much influence did you have in terms of creative, technical, and financial involvement?
On 𝗪𝗟𝗧𝗔, we developed the story together. So Sebastian, my partner in the UK, came up with the story from the very beginning to me, and we developed it all the way together. And so the involvement was all the way through. But then when you have, like, Duke of Corsica, since it was already, the storyline was already written, your creative skills are limited. But they still gave us the opportunity to look at the script and propose maybe our ideas and take it to the next level, maybe.
I think it's time to see the trailers of those two films, actually a film and a documentary, and we hope to see them.
Name is Alfred Rot. Just pay close attention.
I see you found us. The Grand Duke is waiting.
I'm so glad you accepted my invitation.
Are you asking me to design for you a mausoleum?
I need a visionary, like yourself, Mr. Rot.
Look, I think I should get to know you better.
Stay a few more days here, then decide. This island is full of surprises, Mr. Rot.
As I was drawn deeper into the Grand Duke's world, I had the uncomfortable feeling of looking into a mirror.
I've got around 90 more days to live.
90 days?
I can abstain from alcohol. That would help you.
He's taking advantage of you. He's robbing you blind.
He's one of the greatest.
I'm an architect, not a builder. This was the obscure death of the man who called himself the Grand Duke of Corsica.
I hope you enjoyed your time here with me.
I'll let you know when it's over.
In the mid-16th century, a long-running conflict between two of the most powerful world religions is building up to a climactic battle in the Mediterranean for the very soul of Europe.
The rise of the Ottoman Empire is quite an extraordinary piece of history. The speed, the extent, the directions in which it went, this was just something incomprehensible. There was almost a sort of end-of-the-world, apocalyptic feeling amongst Christian Europe.
The Knights of St. John were great seafarers, brilliant warriors, and dedicated to a perpetual war against the infidel.
The historic events are told through the eyes of a young Ottoman conscript and his future arch-rival, a novice Christian knight. From an early age, both are trained to fight in the name of God and Allah.
Winston, I told you I won't forget. You said that you prefer film to television, and you promised to tell us why.
Oh, it's very simple. Well, a film, obviously, you have one director and one crew. With a TV series, if you have 10 episodes, usually it's groups of 4. So you have 4 directors, you have 4 DPs, you have 4 crew, first AD, second AD. So you have to shoot 10 episodes. It's like making 10 films in one. And the schedule just gets so complicated. So you have to imagine you're shooting in this room, episode 2. So you have, we're the actors, Rebecca's the director, Natalie's the DP. So you're here, and then you have episode 10. So all of a sudden, you have to, the next day you have to shoot, or maybe in the afternoon you have to shoot episode 10 in the same room with different costumes, with a different director, with a different. Because even the SAG rules in the United States, or the DGA, a director cannot direct somebody else's episode. So you have to get, you have to have a whole completely new team. So it's just mind-boggling. And then obviously, especially when you're coming to the end, Colin can say more than me. We haven't shot scene 16 from episode 5, or where are we going to shoot this scene? And it just gets so complicated. It's mind-boggling. I still can't understand it to this day, and it's just amazingly difficult to try and, especially for continuity, to try and get all this together, to shoot it, within 5 months, because it's just 10 different stories, basically. And the actors, because the cast have to be, they have to learn so many lines from different, it's not, they're in character, but character maybe sometimes 10 years have passed from, it's a life story of someone, so it's very hard.
Was it the same experience when you were doing Duty and series?
I don't think it was the same experience as Game of Thrones, though. No. But I love series, and it's very mind-boggling, especially when you're working with a crew of 3 and a budget of 5K per episode. Yeah. But I'd like to say something. What I'm really happy about listening to all these experiences and listening to the strategy presented the presentation this morning is that we are really all on the same page. So I think if all stakeholders are on the same page and we're speaking about internationalization, co-production, I think it is a bit easier to sit around the table and find the right solutions for our industry, because the stakeholders are speaking the same language. And as Colin said, the idea of collaboration, even on level of policy, I think is key. We have to all bring our experiences to the table. We all have to bring our know-how to the table to do what is best for our tiny country.
We are now opening the floor for questions and answers from our audience, which is extremely talented because there are a lot of people who have worked in this industry. And I don't know if there's someone who would like to make the first. Okay. Yeah. I think you need a microphone because this is being streamed live.
Test. Okay, appreciate it. So first of all, you guys are great, but I have a question for Winston, or a few. So you mentioned working on the set of the boat in sea. So how was that like, and how were the conditions, the weather in the sea? And the second question is, you said you get around 5 trainees for every movie you do, and so where could one find the opportunity to do so?
Yeah. With answer to your last question, obviously you can write to the Film Commission. There's Julian there. This is why I'm pointing at him, or Leona. So you can register there for your interest to work on a film. I believe that's the way it's done. And then the Film Commission forwards us the names. Obviously, attach a CV. Not that it makes that much difference, because usually it's young people who want to break into the industry for experience. So we're not expecting you to have a list of credits. So that's that. And, shooting, the boat is a combination between the tank and the sea. Probably the hardest part was to break down what you're going to film in the tank and what you're going to film out at sea. Out at sea, it could be, we had nice days and we had not so nice days. So But, and obviously you need a backup. But luckily, with our experience, we knew what to expect. But yes, much harder. A lot of people wouldn't do it. They just really get put off by filming out at sea. We've done it so many times that, it's second nature to us. Can I just say something? Does that answer your question? Because Abigail mentioned, it's been in the back of my head, and when I have something I have to say it. With co-productions, and Paul mentioned it as well. Paul was the minority shareholder on the Grand Duke. This is going to be a problem with co-productions. If we come up, if something costs £10 and we only can put £1 on the table, that's not going to give us a lot of muscle. And usually the story is going to be dictated by the foreign company. So unless that £1 becomes £5, and we say, no, hang on, I want to do my story. Do you want to co-produce with me? The way things happen, and probably you can talk because you've been to all these symposiums or wherever you went. We're not going to have creative. When I co-produced Troy, it was 20% against 80%. I said, oh, wow, 20. You know what? Creatively, I didn't have that much say because I was a minority thing. Although I was a producer, but the lead producer, there was a lead producer and a producer. And probably Paul was the same thing, They had a lead producer and they had a not so, leading producer. So creatively, and, although the story probably was set in course, I'm looking at your film, maybe if he had, 50% of noise, let's say call it the Grand Duke of Malta. Why should we, But unless you have the money to do that, that's always, we're always going to be at a disadvantage. So the money helps us, dictate how things creatively are done.
That's what we need to work on changing, right?
Yeah.
It's one of the things that we need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Cheers.
Do we have more questions? Yes, please. Can you wait so that they give you the microphone, please?
Hi, my name is Annika 𝗙𝗟𝗧𝗔. I'm part of Falcon Films. We've also ventured more into co-productions. It's been a bit of a battle, but we've done 3 over the course of the past 3 years. And one of the massive advantages that you do get with a co-production is not only access to, obviously, the resources from a financial point of view, but also the resources from an infrastructural point of view. So where I think we have a long way to go, and I'm really glad and happy to hear that we're starting to talk this way. For example, we're hopefully going to get to you a film this year, Carmen. Winston, I share your angst about dealing with distribution. It's a nightmare. The Telefilm, who are our partners from the Canadian side, actually took our film as one of the 10 most promising Canadian films, but it's a Maltese film too. We're actually the lead on that. And did pitching sessions in New York and LA. And that helped us find a sales agent in Los Angeles. So co-productions really, really are the way to go because it really gives you access to much, much more than we can provide on our own. So anyway, that's just my little bit of tuppence, but I just wanted to really add my voice to that, really, we really need to build that infrastructure, but we need to be able to put more money on the table. That's key, because if we're not, we won't have. It helps everyone. It helps our crew. We can basically then give them better positions on a role, and we do have the talent for both crew and cast here. So.
And in Annika's case, I think it was a bit of a different, as opposed to Paul, because we're just here, that's why, and I know them both. That was a Maltese story, I believe, right? Because I read the script many years ago. And it was based in Malta, of a woman who comes back.
It's actually a story of, it's written by 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪, who is Maltese-born but lives in Canada. And it's based on the experience of her own aunt, who basically lived a life of servitude looking after her brother, a priest. It was I didn't know about it. Mm-hmm. It's a tradition, and it still exists, that when a man becomes a priest, his younger sister has to give up her life to go and look after her brother for her life. Mm-hmm. So her thing was like, oh my God, and what happens if the priest dies? So it's really a story of women empowerment, about how this woman in her mid-50s regains her life. We were lucky also to get a lead actress which I think is a first for Malta of international repute. We've got Natasha McElhone. So I'm really looking forward to this, but it's really, really hard to get the story out there. Unless you can get it into an A-list festival, you know, like 𝗙𝗘𝗚𝗞 did with Sundance, it's not easy to actually get it in front of people. There's so much content out there, and you're literally trying to, you know, get your head above water, try to get your film noticed. And there's lots of beautiful films that just never get seen.
Yeah.
I think Rebecca.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Anastasi. I'm one of the producers of 𝗙𝗘𝗚𝗞. I want to add on to what Winston was saying about language as well. Language is key, absolutely. And what we found with 𝗙𝗚𝗚 is that they want Maltese language films. The market does want that. So in fact, our sales agents actually told us we're looking forward to the next Maltese language film to come out of the island, because that is where we can compete. Actually, you know, what the international market are looking for, new voices, new perspectives. They want to find something new. And Malta, because, I mean, that's the advantage in a way, because we are, a producer actually called us, and I think it's a bit harsh, but once when I was pitching a project in Rotterdam, he told me, what's going on with Malta in terms of film? You're a black hole. Nothing comes out of you. You're known for servicing, but nothing else, you know? And it is harsh, but I think it's also true, because it's so tough, so tough to make a Maltese film. I mean, I admire all my colleagues immensely, you know, because it is insane. So language, first of all. Second, to elaborate on the point of co-production, I think probably what would also be healthy would be to distinguish in terms of Maltese participation as to whether the Maltese producer would be a minority producer, as we were talking about in terms of Paul's films, or majority shareholder and producer to the table. In fact, a country like Estonia, for instance, actually has 2 separate funds for majority producers, so Estonian filmmakers making Estonian films in Estonian, and Estonian producers coming on board international projects as minority co-producers. And that works because that means that the local filmmakers get access to a specific fund, and they get access to up to 800,000 euros, if I'm not mistaken, whereas the minority co-producing fund is actually a smaller fund, but actually international projects can make use of it. So a system like that could help. So tying in also to what Abigail was saying, it's about creating the structures and the systems which allow us to attract co-productions to Malta, and therefore to attract talent to Malta, money to Malta, so on and so forth. Giving the industry a bit more so that we can get a lot more from international partners.
And stories as well.
And tell Maltese
Otherwise
stories,
they get lost. I mean, I get probably 2 emails a week to do a co-production with someone.
Yeah.
You know, they pitch the story.
That's
it's a foreign story. Okay, I might come to Malta for a week, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
No, you know. If it was something totally Maltese.
That's it.
Like Carmen was, and you know,
absolutely,
and like 𝗙𝗚𝗚𝗞 was, and you know, that's different.
Yeah.
Because it's a Maltese story. Because the black hole is still going to be a black hole. You know, so we give them money, they come, they do their film.
Exactly,
you know,
it's true.
They quote us with a 1-week shooting here or 2.
Exactly.
But you know, the story has to be primarily set here, I think.
Absolutely. It's about giving Maltese producers and filmmakers agency to tell their own stories at the end of the day, and prioritizing Maltese filmmakers to tell their own stories.
Yeah.
And at the moment, we're just on the back foot, so there needs to be much more attention given to that. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Mars. Most of you won't know me here. I've moved to Malta, coming from Berlin, where I've worked as a production manager mostly. Originally Amsterdam, so I've already been playing around on the international scene a little bit. If you are talking about setting up a co-production fund in order to be able to tell Maltese stories or even to co-produce international stories, what kind of conditions would you link it to? Because I know from my limited experience in Holland and Germany, for example, the funds there will allow you, and there's funding available if you want to participate as a producer in a co-production. But it usually requires, for example, national distribution. So if you want to participate in a German film, if you're a Dutch producer and you want to co-produce, the Dutch Film Fund will require you to lay a Dutch distribution plan and deal on the table for you to get the co-production fund. So what kind of conditions would you imagine for Malta if you say we have a co-production fund, we want this fund to support producers in setting up either your own film that you can then take abroad and find co-producers for, or to participate in an international production? To what kinds of conditions and standards would you imagine that's possible?
I think there's, I'm the last person to speak on Cobra, but I think the Film Commission probably, Annika probably, and you, Rebecca, probably know, and Abigail, there is some form of conditions, right? Like guidelines of what you have to do. So I'm sure there are. Sorry, Paul, of course, probably did it. So I'm sure there's guidelines on how this is done, what the conditions are, which I don't know personally. It's dead? Okay, I didn't know that.
So it doesn't really exist right now, right?
It used to exist, for sure.
And non-resuscitating.
Sorry, Carmen is the last film that had benefited from the co-production fund. And even then, it was like a real work in progress just to get to put it nicely, to even get to establish what the terms and conditions are. It's largely an investment fund. I mean, in fact, one of the things that we have suggested to the Film Commission is that one way to help local films is that whoever wins funds from Screen Malta for production should perhaps get a license deal with the local distributor, because that also then helps when you go and pitch to distributors outside of the country, that you can actually on the back of it say, look, I have a distribution deal already in my own country, small as it may be. Because if we cannot even have that it's really very difficult to take it beyond that.
Yeah, I think this is a point we missed. I think the national broadcaster and the Film Commission need to work hand in hand.
Correct.
They can't be two separate entities working on their own. It is very important that, as Colin was saying, like people in servicing, but even the policymakers need to get together and have a common vision and a common strategy, because, again...
I completely agree. There has to be collaboration between all entities, or else we as filmmakers, we're fighting a losing battle, you know, because we're going to be struggling to try and achieve something, but then the people at the top who may actually make the decision whether we can have this help or not.
Yes, and wherever you go, they ask you, is your national broadcaster on board?
Exactly.
So regardless on whether you were funded or supported by the Film Commission, Screen Malta, if your national broadcaster is not on board, that is a chink in your... So it is important that they come together, and... But I think we will. I have faith.
So do I.
I have one last question, which is going to be common to all of you.
Okay.
But starting from Paul, because the first round we started from you, Winston.
Well, he's the youngest, I think. I'm definitely old.
It's the same question for all of you. What one change or introduction would you like to see in the industry to ensure that film in Malta continues to be successfully internationally?
Tough question.
Very tough question.
Yes.
One change.
I think we need to train more people to get into this industry and get new blood going into this industry.
You believe that more training, more education in specific?
Yes. As Winston mentioned before, even getting 5 trainees on board is a problem.
But
even on a small production.
More formal, do you mean more formal training?
Yes, definitely.
Abigail?
So he took the training, right? So that is the done deal. I think what I'd really like to change is for policymakers and also the industry per se to understand that our market is very small and we need to work on a global market. We have to look at a global arena and not just our tiny island. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but co-production is what I would change.
Colin?
Okay, so training co-production's gone. I will take the next one, which we've highly discussed already, is more backing in terms of funding and stuff like that to help boost the industry. That would be my pick.
We left Winston with nothing.
No.
You have a list?
You
have a list?
There's plenty.
I would say talent.
Talent.
Especially above the line talent. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. We don't have the talent that we have, that we think we have. Look, if we had to make it a Maltese TV series for abroad, we don't have cast. We don't have 25 cast members in Malta. I would say maybe there's 3 or 4 good ones. The rest, they can't carry a movie. It's very, very tough. We don't have, this is my opinion.
Loads of
But
great actors.
I work on the internet, I work with the top of the top. So I know, I sit for auditions, I look at them, and we don't have the talent. We don't have, our pool is very limited in everything. And, a first AD, maybe there's one at the moment because he retired from first AD. A cinematographer, would I get a multi-cinematographer for film? Sorry, I wouldn't, because they're not of that level that we want to shoot a foreign film. They're okay for, for local television, but it's a completely different, if you go to the international market, it's a completely different kettle of fish. We don't have the pool. If there's 2 films shooting at the same time, I probably give you a hard time, right? Because everybody wants to work for me because they think I pay them more money, which I don't. But they want to be on a fancy film rather than. You're all struggling for. We will struggle for crew, right? Because there isn't the crew.
But
we're tiny here.
When it comes to talent, I think we need to train more. But for example, when we went to 𝗙𝗟𝗧𝗔 with Holy Mary, they were all engaging with all our actors. They thought they did not engage with the actors, and they were all local actors.
But for a local
doing
production
a local
in Maltese,
project, exactly.
But you can't tell someone to speak English and go, go.
Colin,
But that's, yes,
one of the last films I did, which was based in Malta, and the story was based in Malta. It was a foreign film, but based in Malta. 90% of both the crew and the talent, the actors, were Maltese. We struggled.
What was the film?
This was Checking for Murder, the Canadian production. We really struggled to find the level of talent. Obviously, there are other productions going on, so I second what Winston said, because it's not that there isn't talent, because there is talent, but it's limited. So as soon as someone is occupied on something else, you're the second, third best choices. The standard drops quite drastically.
And usually, when you have a production, usually people want the same talent.
Exactly. That's exactly it. We're all sort of in league for the same people. So there's and this also goes back to training, co-productions, funding. They're all linked.
But
essentially,
we're all on the same page.
Exactly.
So it's amazing.
It's all linked.
Let's have another question. It seems only from this side. What happened to the other side of the?
Oh, they can't.
In my case, I think it's less of a question because as an actor, I'm going to throw my 2 cents. But the truth is, I have students. I have young actors coming to me, asking me, I want to get into this industry. What do I do? And the first thing in my mind is what I did. Go train abroad. Now, I'll be honest with you. The amount of money I spent in my training, I am never going to see on this island. And if I go abroad, I'm competing as a foreign white person versus coming to Malta and being able to perform as a Maltese actor. And by the way, my training abroad is not the same training as a Maltese actor because your voice work is useless if you're training in English and then you come to Malta and you're trying to train in Maltese if you don't have regular classes, if you're not going to accent classes, if you're not going to voice, if you're not doing scene studies. It's an entirely different landscape. So when we talk about education, I think we really need to go into the nitty-gritty of saying it's not enough to say there's no talent. Why? And why isn't it the right kind of talent?
We don't have enough. No, we don't. No.
Talent. Even the talent that we do have, I'm not disagreeing with you. It's not the right talent for the kind of projects we're putting on because the talent that we do have has invested so much in a training that we don't have in Malta, but is not quite right for the industry we're trying to build. So I think that's a huge conversation that needs to be had. And I think there has to be the conversation of, if we are going to ask young artists to make that commitment, what are we going to give them back? That's the basic thing. We don't even get minimum wage in Malta. Why should I come back to Malta? So I'm just throwing that out there because the discussion is having that discussion. I'm not saying any of these producers are lacking, but it's there to be had. Sorry, thanks.
I think there is a lot of things that we have to do, and I think it was an excellent start for these panel discussions. We have a lot throughout the whole week. If they are going to be at this level, I'm sure that it will help so that we can develop a world-class film industry in Malta. I thank Winston, Colin, Abigail, and Paul. I thank you also because you were fantastic also with very good questions that you have asked and very good comments that you made. I thank you all for being with us and hope we'll see you again in other panel discussions because I'm sure all of you have the film industry at heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you.